Hello and welcome to my guide on setting up Trade Skill Master for Professions. Now I'm using TSM4 beta here, so things will be slightly different if you're using TSM3. Also, as we are still in beta with TSM4, some things may get changed or look slightly different until it's released. The main thing here though is the principles are the same. This is kind of an update to my previous video on making gold, but incorporating TSM4 and all the things I've learned in that time. TSM is all about groups. A group is a way of organising your items by what you want to do with them. Think of them as folders. An item can only ever be in one folder at a time, so it's important to think about where you're going to put it. The groups can then have different operations applied to them. With professions, the operations you'd be typically looking at are for shopping, crafting and posting. Now TSM can be very overwhelming when you first start, so my advice is always to start small and grow from there. There are more complete groups and operations you can import like Sargeras, which are really excellent and are very comprehensive. If you're comfortable with using them, I'd certainly suggest you go check them out. There's another thing TSM can do for you, and that's import all your professions at the beginning when you first open it. I'm not sure it's currently implemented in TSM4 beta yet, but it's certainly an option in TSM3. This is great for getting you going, but again, I'd suggest making your own groups if you want to learn about what things you want to sell and grow it slowly from there. What I'll do here is go through a typical profession like Enchanting and grow it from nothing to a more complete setup. Making gold in WoW using professions is simple. You take materials from the game and then you use your profession skill to turn those materials into something else which will benefit the players and sell it to them on the auction house. Now I'm not going to go into leveling professions here. There's plenty of other guides out there and things are likely to change when Battle for Azeroth comes out. So I'm going to go through mine, even though it's already well fleshed out, and I'll do the same with other professions in the future and kind of continue the series. So let's take Enchanting. Here I've gotten quite a few enchanting recipes already, and most of the Legion ones at rank 3, so we're in a good position on that front. In TSM, you can see the same list along with a projected profit and a sale rate here on the right hand side. But it doesn't show you the complete picture. TSM is guessing how you might get hold of the materials and is looking at the current price on the market for selling. Once you get to know your market and what sells, you'll be able to get a much better idea of what things sell and what makes the most profits. The higher the sale rate, the better chance something has of selling, but that depends entirely on your server and competition and your own success rate, so you'll get a feel for it over time as you start experimenting. Let's look at just the basic Legion enchants for now to get a better idea of how everything works and how to set up operations. First we need to know what kind of materials we need to make these enchants. I can see here we've got Chaos Crystals and Arcana for these bindings, and the cloaks require Blood of Sargeras, and the necks require Chaos Crystals and Leylight Shard. And then if we're going to put these enchants onto an enchant that other people can buy, we need Enchanting Vellum. So those are the main materials we need. Now Enchanting Vellum we can buy from a vendor, so that's quite easy. If I put some open my bags here, I've already got some I've purchased here. The other thing we've got is Chaos Crystals. I've got quite a few of those, and Blood of Sargeras I picked up, and Leylight Shards and Arcana here. Now initially you don't have much information on your tooltips, so what I'd suggest is go over to TSM and go into the settings and turn on a few of the tooltip settings. So you've got value sources, you want the region sale average is a good one. Accounting wise, probably you want your sale rate, and crafting you'll want the material cost and the list of materials in tooltip. Everything else you probably don't need. The other thing that's really useful is in accounting is to keep checked, use smart average for purchase price, because that will use what's in your bags and not what you've historically bought. So it gives TSM a more accurate idea as to what you've actually been buying for recently rather than historically. So now when we look at our tooltips, you can see that our Chaos Crystals, we've got a purchase price there, it's the one in the middle that's 256 gold. That's the average purchase price. Now you can see there our mat cost is actually lower. Now these are some of the things we're going to have to go into TSM and tell it where we're getting these things from. So let's take, for example, chaos crystals. Chaos crystals you can get by buying them off the auction house, which is probably the best way of getting them because you'll need quite large quantities of them. You can get them from disenchanting high eye level items like from 850 above, and you can get them from disenchanting items that you buy using the nether shards, which you can do with an order hall mission. We're just going to keep things simple for now and assume we're going to buy those off the auction house. So we'll go into TSM and just make sure we check the settings on those. The other things you've got is Leylight, which you're going to normally just buy off the auction house, and Arcana you can either get from doing a ley shatter or you can buy that direct from the auction house. Now, Blood of Sargeras is a bit of a weird one because you can't buy it, it's soulbound, and you can get it from doing things like world quests, and you can get it from disenchanting braces, and you can get it from running dungeons. So there's a few different ways, and also order hall missions as well. There's a few different ways you can get hold of it, so you're going to have to build up your stock in various ways, but that still has a price to it, because there's a blood vendor in Dalaran which can convert your bloods into something else, which you could sell for a greater profit. Now, in order to get an idea of what that price is, there's a really good website. If you do a search for Blood Money WoW, you can see here, rodent.io, there's an EU version, and there's a regular US version, so I'm going for the EU because that's me. Find my server, and this is telling me that currently, with the current prices of everything, that my blood could be converted into 3 Starlight Roses, which could actually give me 284 gold if I converted those bloods straight into Starlight Rose. You've got also other materials down here like Primal Obliterum, or you've got Imperium. So there's a few different things you could use your bloods for, so it's worth bearing that in mind when setting your prices. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into TSM and we're going to tell it what the actual prices of these are based on how we're going to get them, and this will give TSM a much more accurate price for all our materials. If we go into Enchanting here, now if we go into crafting reports, under materials, now if you change this to Enchanting for a much shorter list, so the ingredients, the materials we're looking for now are Arcana, Chaos Crystals, Blood of Sargeras and the Enchanting Vellum. So these are the ones that we're going to be using. So this is kind of our almost our shopping list. Okay, these are the things we need to collect, and then we're going to use our profession to turn those into something that the players are going to buy. Now the default that you get with TSM is like a min between the DB market value, is what you can buy off what the current price is on the auction house at the moment, the crafting cost, which could be how you could disenchant something, the vendor buy, if that item has a sale that you can buy it from the vendor, and the convert DB market is if you can convert something from something else. That would be the price of the thing you could convert it from. So it takes the minimum of all these values, and that's the default string. Now that's okay, that works all right for most things, but it doesn't really take into account your average buy price may well be less than the market price, because if you're savvy and you've been looking at all the items on the auction house and you only buy them when they're super cheap or you can pick up a bargain, then your average price will actually be quite a bit lower than the DB market price, and that's how you maximize your profits. So what we're going to do here is you could do it simply, which is basically you could take this whole string out and you could say, right, the only way I'm going to get my Arcana is actually buying it from the auction house. So you're going to tell TSM that the average buy price, which is the price that I bought them, is going to be my material cost. So use that for my material cost. So that's a very simple way of doing it. Now, it can get more complicated because there are other ways of getting Arcana. For example, as I'm also a tailor, I can get my Arcana from disenchanting the rank 3 braces. I'm not going to go into that now, so I'm going to keep this simple as an example of how to set up your prices in TSM for sort of like a basic operation where you're buying things. So you could put our average buy in like this on its own, or you could just keep the string as it was, which is that, and you can just put in at the beginning or anywhere just average buy. As long as you have the comma in afterwards, then it will look at each of these and it will include your average buy price. Now if your average buy price is smaller than your DB market price, TSM will use this average buy price. So I'll put that in there for Arcana, and we're going to do the same with Chaos Crystals, because my average buy might be lower than this. Now I know it's not at the moment because my average buy price is actually higher than that. That's another matter. Now the Blood of Sargeras, that's actually got, if I close that, you can see it's got no price on it at the moment. That's because you can't buy it using any of these methods. So you need to tell TSM how you're going to get that Blood of Sargeras. Now, we looked at that website, which gave me a rough figure, which is about 285 gold, which you could put that in as a value. You could literally take this all out and say, okay, my blood price is probably something like 285 gold. You can type that in, and that would work as a basis. It doesn't update yet. It will update when I reload the crafting window. The other thing we could do is there's a big string. I'm going to put this in the description below. And this string, it does effectively what that website does, but it actually puts everything, all those items and all the kind of percentages and the differences of those into one big list, and then TSM will do what that website does but calculate it itself. So I'm going to copy that string into here. You won't see the whole thing because it's really long. You just got to make sure you press enter at the end. Now if it's incorrect, TSM will tell you in the comments that there's an invalid price. So just double check you've copied and pasted the correct amount, and then we'll close that and put that in there. Now if I close this and reopen it, it will refresh the material prices, and we can have a look to see how that affects the Blood of Sargeras price. You can see there, Blood of Sargeras is actually coming in at 240 gold using that string. So there's a slight difference there. It's not taking everything that website's done, but it does give you an idea of, okay, blood has got to be worth something. And in this case, 240 gold will work quite well for us. The other thing to go into is look at our ley light. And so we want to make sure that we add in our average buy into this. I've gone the brackets the wrong way there, so if I delete that out, this is where syntax is important. Because this is where it can get a bit complicated and overwhelming. So if you're not sure, or you really just, this looks too overwhelming, it's just as simple. For now, you could just go average buy like that and be done with that. And that will be fine for most instances. If that's where you're going to be getting your ley light from, then that's fine. Obviously, that's not going to take into the price of the ley shatter, where you get 3 arcana from 1 ley light. But for now, we're just going to keep this simple, just for the basis of learning and giving TSM slightly more accurate prices. So if I now look into my tooltips, we've got Chaos Crystal. Now my average purchase price of that is 256 gold, which is a bit higher, but the mat cost is coming in at 213 gold because you can currently buy it for cheaper than my average buy price. If we look at ley light, my average purchase price there is 57 gold, which is the same as the mat cost of 57 gold, because we took everything else out and we said just look at the average buy price. And with Arcana, we've got my average purchase price there of 14 gold, and that mat cost is coming in at 14 gold as well. Now you can see above there we've got a crafting cost, which is the ley shatter. So if I were to take my current price of ley light shards, which is the the 57 gold, and if I were to divide that by 3, that would be the price of my Arcana. So that price, the 57 divided by 3, is coming out at 19 gold 54. So TSM is telling me it would actually be a negative profit if I were to use ley shatter to create my Arcana. So this is important to have these tooltips and look at your mat cost, and so that you know that TSM is calculating the correct prices for all your materials, because that is the basis of your profit. If you can get those down, then you make more profit, which means you can make more gold, which is the kind of the whole point. So now going back to TSM, talking about the groups, we want to set up those things. We want to get hold of all those things, and we want to buy the ones that we're going to buy off the auction house. So we're going to set up a group for that, and we're going to create a shopping operation so that we will have those as a handy list that we can buy all those items. So going into our groups, this is the first group we're going to make. So we click the plus and we create a new group. We're going to edit this group and we call it shopping. So this is going to be the base group. So that's actually, we're not going to put anything in that just yet, because I'm going to further put a subgroup inside that, just because I'm going to have more shopping things that I want. Think of it like little shopping lists you're going to take to the supermarket, and this is going to be like a number of different things for you to look out for when you're on the auction house. So I'm going to make another group underneath this one, and I'm going to call this one Legion Materials, Legion Enchanting. Legion Enchanting. Okay, so this, we're going to put in the things that we would normally buy off the auction house. So say, for example, Leylight, Chaos Crystals and Arcana. So those are the things we're going to want to look out for on the auction house. So now we've got this in a group. So it's a little folder containing these 3 items. Now we want to tell TSM what to do with items that are in this folder. In this case, we're going to look for a shopping operation. So we've got the group operations, and we've got all the different operations here: auctioning, crafting, mailing, shopping, sniper and vendoring. So this is where it can get a bit overwhelming. So we're just going to use this as our shopping operation. So we're just going to create a shopping operation. So we're going to override the parent, and we're going to use this drop down to create a new operation. Now this new operation, we're going to name it appropriately. We're going to call this Shopping Legion. Actually, we're going to not specify this to the group. We're going to specify as to how we're going to do this. We're going to call this average buy, because that's the basis for this shopping operation, the average buy price. So you're looking at the maximum auction price per item. It's defaulted that to 1. We're just going to put in average buy. So we're telling TSM to go shopping and have a look at the average buy price that we've just defined, and look on the auction house and try and find everything and tell me whether it's above or below that average buy price. Now we could put in a percentage here. We could tell TSM to only look for things that are under 100% average buy or under 90% average buy. But for the purposes of this shopping operation, it's just going to be very generic, and we want to see everything, because when you're starting out, you're not sure whether you're going to need to buy over the price or under the price. Ideally, it'd be under the price, but maybe you're running out of stock in that item and you really need to buy some more of it, in which case the only choice you've got is to buy it slightly over your average buy price. This is why I keep this turned off, or rather on, like that, so it shows the auctions above max price. That way I'm seeing the whole market, and I can make a decision based on looking at that list. The rest of it we're just going to keep at the moment. We're just going to keep this simple for now, so you can ignore the restock quantity, neat stacks, all that kind of stuff, and we're just going to look at this main average buy price. So what does that mean in reality? Well, let's go have a look. So we're in the auction house now, and we've got our shopping group here. So we go into the shopping tab, and we can just click on this Legion Enchanting group, just the one we need selected, and we can go straight down and run a shopping scan. And what TSM will do then is look for every item in that folder, so Chaos Crystals, Arcana and Leylight Shards, and it's going to compare it against the average buy price, and then it's going to come back to us and tell us what those are as a percentage versus our average buy price. So you can see here the Arcana at the moment is at 15 gold. If I hover over this, you get the tooltip, and you look in the middle number on purchase, min, average and max. The middle number is 14 gold 70, and that's reflected in the MAC cost right at the bottom. So that's slightly, my average buy price is slightly less than this at the moment, which is why it's coming in at 102%. The same with Leylight Shards, is they're currently at 60 gold, and I've been buying them for 57 gold. So therefore we could buy some more now if we need them. I mean, I've only got 7 Leylight Shards and 59 Arcana, so I'm quite low on that stock. So if I was in a situation here where I'd be going, well, actually, I'm going to need to buy these. This is when I'm on now at the moment, so I'm going to have to buy them at this price. Ideally, you'd have a larger stock of them, and you'd be able to buy them at a cheaper price. So then looking at Chaos Crystals here, you've got them at 185 gold. Now, my mat cost is coming in at 213 gold, because that's what the market value is at the moment. So that's even less than the market value. But our average buy price, which is what this percentage is based off of, is actually 256 gold. So it's even more of a bargain. So looking at this, you'd say, right, definitely, I'd need to buy this Chaos Crystal at this price. But you don't want to overstock too much on it like I have. So it's kind of like a balancing act between your stock levels and trying to buy it as cheaply as possible. So let's say, for example, we bought some of these so that we got some stock of these, because my stocks are quite low, and this was the only time we happened to have some. So let's say I bought up a whole load of these at the beginning price. Let's say I got all these ones. Now, obviously, I'm buying these up, and I'm going over my 100% of my average buy price. So my average that I've been buying these is going to go up. Now, this won't necessarily get reflected in the prices of TSM, because it might still be looking at the market value. For instance, you can see here it goes from 102 to 135%. But for the purposes of just like this, testing this out, I wouldn't recommend you always buy at higher prices. But I'm just going to get myself some stock so we can test this out. You're just going to buy up some of this stuff at the moment. There we go, that should be enough for now. We've already got a load of Chaos Crystals. So then you go pick that up from the mailbox. Now the thing to note here is our Leylight we've now got 20 of, and our average purchase price is 60 gold 33. And that's reflected in the mat cost of 60 gold 33. And our Arcana is 18 gold 83 per average purchase price, and our mat cost is coming in there at 18 gold 83. So we're just double checking the prices of everything. Now if these were slightly out, to say maybe the market was slightly different, or it had dropped, like in the case of Chaos Crystals, the mat cost is coming in at 213, and you might say to yourself, well, actually no, I really want to use my average buy price because that's the price that I've currently got this stock at. So this is where you need to sort of like play around with your material prices depending on what's going to be useful to you. So in this case, what I would probably do is go into my Enchanting and change my Chaos Crystal price to just be average buy. Materials, Enchanting, Chaos Crystals, and I'd probably strip this all out and just say average buy, because that for this instance is the only way I'm getting hold of the Chaos Crystals, and that's all I want TSM to look at. Now I'll have to think in my head, okay, I'll want to get Chaos Crystals at a slightly cheaper price or something else like that. Conversely, you're looking at the Blood of Sargeras. Now we saw on that website the price was higher, so maybe we want to just bump this price up a little bit higher and give ourselves a value of something like, I don't know, 290 gold or 300 gold. You might be able to use it in different ways. So it's kind of being a little bit flexible. I mean, this string works for most situations, so I'm going to, in this case, leave it as it is because it's kind of like an adaptable string. So I'm going to leave that as it is. I'm going to close this down and reopen it so that the Enchanting window can update its prices of the materials. Now when we look at, I'm going to ignore the tomes for the moment, And we're going to look at the basic profits now of the things that we could possibly make. So we've got things like Binding of Critical Strike. That's got quite a good sale rate of 0.56. The profits on these aren't too great compared to that, but maybe, say for example, I'm learning the market and I want to see what sells. So let's say, okay, I don't know what sells. I can see these look like they might sell quite well, and they're all currently green. So currently the price of my materials, converting them into these items, would make for some profits. So what I would do then is select each of these and go, right, okay, I'm going to queue up one of each. This means that I can make 9 of them. So I'm going to queue them up. I'm going to make one of each, just to give myself an item in my bags, because this is important when setting up your groups. Having an item in your bag is the easiest way to then make a group. So I'm going to craft each of these now. We have all the materials for them, and it's telling me my estimated profit here is 1,991 gold. I'm just going to make one of each. There we go. So now if I look in my bags, I've got all the 4 different enchants here. And what it tells me here in the tooltips is I've got the crafting cost there. So the crafting cost is 1,720. This is based off of the prices that I put in for the Enchanting Vellum, the Chaos Crystals, and the Arcana. So I know these prices are accurate based on my activity. And my activity in this case is mainly buying these from the auction house, and the bloods I'm assigning a value to them because there are other things I could possibly do with those, and I have to collect those anyway through different means. I can't buy them on the auction house. So I've got each of these, one of each, in my bags. Now that they're in my bags, I can make a group from those. So we go back into the main TSM, and we're going to set up our group. Now this group is going to contain 2 operations. This is going to be basically, these are my enchants that I'm going to make, and I want to tell TSM how to post them and how to craft them. Now I've had to craft these manually just so that I've got the first ones in stock so that I can put them into a group. Then after that I'll be able to tell TSM, well, make another one when one of these has run out, when I've sold it. So let's add another group. Now we're going to call this group Enchanting. There we go. And so I've split these groups into 2 separate ones, in essence, because there's different things you're going to be doing. You're either going to be on the auction house buying things, which is all my shopping groups, or you're going to be using your groups to either make something or post it on the auction house. So I tend to have those 2 global groups. I mean, you could even make one called, say, Professions, and then put Enchanting in there. It's really easy to just arrange these groups however makes sense in your head. But the main thing is to think that each of these groups is going to do a specific thing to a certain list of items. So we need to fill this group with some items. Let's put all our enchants that we just made into that group. So we're going to add those items in. So now we've got the group made up that has our ring enchants. Now maybe we want to do other enchants in the future. So what I'd probably do is have a subgroup of this, and I'd call it something like Legion Rings. And then I want to put these ones from the parent group into this one, which is really easy to do because the parent items are listed here, and we can add them into that. So they're no longer in this enchanting group, they're actually in this subgroup Legion Rings. And then our Legion enchanting materials are in this group. So we've got 2 groups now. The only thing we haven't done is told TSM what to do with this group. Obviously we want to sell them and we want to craft them. So let's make 2 more group operations. So auctioning will be the first thing. Override the parent operation. We just want to work with this one. Now we haven't got any auctioning operations at the moment, so let's have a look. Let's create a new one. Now this is where you can use lots of different ways of defining how you're going to put those on the market. Now what I want to really factor in here is the amount it cost me to craft these items. So I'm going to use a A standard one of 24 hours. You could do it more or less depending on how frequently you're going to be doing it. Now I've only got one of each of these at the moment, so for the purposes of this, I'm going to say, okay, we're going to at most put one on because we're testing the market. And then as you find, say, more sell, you could increase these numbers depending on what you've got in your bags and what you think would sell more of before you next come online. So we're going to keep that as one. We don't need to allow partial stacks because these aren't really items that you would sell in stacks. Now there's various things you could do here. The price settings for the bid amount, if someone wants to bid on something rather than buy it out, I want to give them a kind of like a little taster. So I usually put this down a little bit, say 96%, so that might tempt someone to bid on something if it's about to run out, but not so low that I'm going to lose money. Now the undercut amount, the default 1 copper is absolutely fine. You don't want to be driving the prices down, so keep it at the minimum amount, which is 1 copper. Now there's 3 different things here: the minimum price, the maximum price, and the normal price. So the minimum price is the lowest you're going to go, and again, this default string it works well for catch-all kind of situations, but we want to tailor this to our situation, which is professions. And you can see the kind of things you can put in here as keywords like crafting, dbmarket, or db region market average. Now these are great ones to have in your mind for use in the future, and we're going to use one of these, the crafting one. So the minimum price is going to be the price it cost us to make it, because we don't want to make a loss. So you could take all this out and you could just say crafting cost. Now the problem with this is it doesn't take into account the auction house listing fees, which is 5% when you sell an item. So usually what I do is I'll set my minimum price to 110% crafting. So that is basically going to be the minimum that I want to, because I know I made these, that's the minimum I want to sell things for, because I don't want to lose any money. Let's go back up and just make sure we name this operation properly. Let's call it auction crafting. There we go. Let's go back onto here and back onto our list. So we've got the minimum price. The maximum price is usually something that you rarely come up against. That's usually basically if the most you'd ever put something on. And to be honest, this could be anything. This could be 5,000 gold, 1,000,000 gold. It's not something you're going to get very often. So let's set this to a percentage of our crafting cost. Now, something like 1,000% would be quite a large crafting markup. So say that would be the maximum amount. Now the normal price is going to be the price that you put something on when nobody else is selling it for. Now this could be a few different things. It could be the DB market or the DB region market, because you don't know what's going to be a good price. I mean, it's worth looking. Move this down here, and you can look at the price of something. Say, okay, let's look at our enchants here. We can see on the tooltip that you've got the region market value is 1,700, and our min buyout is currently at 2,400. So these are selling at quite a high price at the moment, which is brilliant for us. So our normal price, we maybe say there were none on at the moment, or we'd want to have something like that 2,400. You can look on the Undermine journal to see a list of all the different sort of like prices as they've gone historically, which is quite nice for just kind of gauging the price overall for that particular item. What I think we can do in this situation is again probably use our crafting cost, because I know usually with my enchants that there's usually at least one on of everything. So I'm going to say, okay, well, if no other ones are on, which is unlikely, I'm going to put it on for 200% of crafting cost. Now you could say, okay, what about the DB region market? What if the crafting cost isn't enough? So we could maybe add that in and say, okay, look at that crafting and look at that DB region market average, which I remember we looked at was about 1,700. And so say, let's, for example, we said, okay, use the maximum between 200% crafting or DB region market average, or maybe it's a percentage of DB region market average. Say you go 150% of DB region market average. It's up to you, but we're going to keep this simple for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this out and I'm going to keep it simple and I keep it at 200% crafting, because this operation is all about the crafting cost. So that keeps it simple. Now the other thing you could think about is, what if they are below min price? Do I still want to put it on? Because maybe someone will buy those ones that are below min price, and then mine will be next on the list. If mine's not on the list, then what am I going to do? So what you could do in this situation is say, okay, well, I know these are quite cheap to put on. I know the auctioning cost to list it on the auction house is quite cheap. So I don't mind putting it on even if I know I'm not the cheapest. So you could say, okay, post at minimum price. So in this case, if they're cheaper than my minimum price, I'm still going to put it on, but because I'm putting it on at my minimum price, I'm still going to make a profit. So that's a basic auctioning crafting operation we've got there. But that's not the actual crafting operation, that's just for posting the items. So what we would do now, go into the auction house, and now in the auctioning tab, we can use our Legion rings and we can run a post scan. Now what this will do is it will look at everything that's on the market, and it will say, okay, look, I'm going to undercut the competition on all of these. Now what you can do is you can go onto this all auctions tab here, and you can see here where you'd come in on the list. You go underneath here and you can see where everything else is at the moment. You can also see the percentage DB, the percentage of the market value they are at the moment with these percentages. So you can see that binding and masteries are actually quite cheap at the moment, but critical strikes are currently, according to the DB market, overpriced. But as we've got in the auctioning log, we're going to undercut all the competition and we're still going to make a profit. So what we'd then do is post all these 4 on. And so now they're on the auction house. And we'd wait and we'd sometimes maybe cancel those off and re-put them on if someone's undercut us. Or you leave them for the 24 hours and you come back when they've expired and then you'll try and put them on again. Now what happens if one of these sell? That way we need a crafting operation to be able to restock on these. So going into our group, we've got our base group Enchanting, so we'll go into Legion rings, and we've got the group operations here. We've got our auctioning operation. We want to add in a crafting operation here. So we override this one. We're going to create a new operation, and we're going to call this something like craft one of each, because this could be applied to not just the rings, this could be applied to other things. So basically we say, okay, we want to craft 1 each of these things. So the maximum restock quantity is going to be 1. And now we want to set a minimum profit. What we can do for minimum profit is now this isn't including the price of crafting, this is just profit over the crafting. So what you do is have something like 20% crafting. It's not 120% because you're not including the crafting cost, because this is just profit. So the profit will be a percentage of the amount it cost you to make it. So in this case it's going to be 20% of crafting. If we left that without that 20% on, then the minimum profit would be the price it cost to make it again. So that's why we've got the 20% in there, because it allows to sort of like take into account the variation on crafting. So we're going to put in 20% crafting on this, and that's it. That's all you need to do for that one. What that means, the way that would work, let's say for example we sold one of our rings, we would then go into our Enchanting tab, and then we'd go to the group, and then we'd click on the group that we want to restock on, we'd click rings, and would select restock selected groups. Now when I click that, nothing happens because I've already got the ones on the market, so it's not going to restock over that amount. But for the purposes of sort of like clarity, let's say we change that restocking operation, because I know I've got more than that one critical strike on the auction house already. So we're going to go into the group, go into the Legion rings, look at the group operation, and instead of crafting one of each, just so we can test the market, what I'm going to say is actually, let's pretend we want to restock 10 of them. So we go back into here, and we're going to restock the rings, and now it's telling me, okay, you're going to make, you need to make 3 of the masteries, 3 of the critical strikes, and 5 of the versatilities. That's because I've already got more than that on there. I've got more than just the 4 I originally put on. I've already got some other ones on there as well anyway, and these will just take me back up to 10 of each. So that's how it works in theory, and then you can go and craft each of those. But for the purposes of starting out in a market, just start with 1 of each. If it sells, make another one and put that back on. If that sells consistently, then you know you've got something that's selling well. Then you could increase the numbers. You could then go, okay, well I'm going to increase these numbers on the groups. So I'm going to increase the crafting amount I make. So obviously this is called 1 of each. You'd probably have to another one of these and call it 10 of each, or 5 of each, or you just up it up each amount. Say for example we've got 1 of each there. And then what you maybe want to do is, if you go into your crafting, you've got 1 of each here, you could duplicate this and you could call this, I can see I've misspelt that anyway, say we call that 5 of each, like that, and then we change this maximum restock quantity to 5, and just make sure I change that spelling of each. So we've now got 2 crafting operations, a 1 of each and a 5 of each, but we're only using 1 at the one time. So our Legion rings at the moment, the group operation, we've got craft 1 of each, but say we want to up that, then we can change this, we can take it off, and we can put another one on, and we've got a choice now. We'll use the 5 of each one. So this is how you build up your groups. This is how you learn how to use a market. And this is how you restock on items that have sold. And then your basic day-to-day activity will be to go on, do a shopping operation, see if you can buy any of the materials cheap, and build up your stock of the materials that you need. So the more you do that and the cheaper you can get them, the greater your profits. And then say you buy stuff and your average buy stuff goes down, then your crafting cost could actually go down, because the cost it costs you to craft them has gone down because it's based off of your average buy. So it's a way of just setting everything up to get you going, really. So this is really basic, but that's how I would recommend starting off. Start small, start with just a couple of operations, understand how they work, start playing around with the figures. You can look at the different values like the DB market, the DB region market, and you can try and understand how those work, do the research on those. For professions, I tend to base everything off of the crafting cost, and for the materials I tend to base everything off of the average buy cost, unless it's a special case like something like the Blood of Sargeras. And then you need to think about other ways you can get those materials and factor those in. But for the basis of this demonstration, I just want to kind of show you how you can set it up and get yourself going with TSM4. So I hope you found that useful. I'm going to expand on this over time and add a few more in, and I have my stream where I've already done this quite a bit more, and you can always feel free to catch me on Twitch. I'll make more YouTube videos, and you can see me there as well. So I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you next time. Thank you very much.